In the early 1920s, Wichita was a city on the move. Oil was flowing, aviation was taking flight, and the city was rapidly outgrowing its frontier roots. It needed a landmark that signaled to the rest of the country that Wichita had arrived. Enter George Siedhoff, a construction magnate with a vision. Siedhoff didn't just want to build another hotel, he wanted to build the premium hotel of the Midwest. He chose a spot that was strategically brilliant, the corner of Waco and Douglas in Wichita. Siedhoff broke ground on September 19, 1921, but this project was unique from the start. The land wasn't just a vacant lot, it was leased from the Arkansas Valley Interurban Railway. Siedhoff's plan was to build the hotel directly adjacent to the electric train depot. Imagine it, you step off the train from Newton or Hutchinson, and within an hour, you'd be walking into the lobby of Marble and Crystal. It was the ultimate 1920s luxury transportation hub. The construction was a feat of engineering for the time, costing roughly $400,000, a staggering amount in 1922, or $17 million today. Siedhoff used his own construction company to ensure every detail was perfect. Every one of the original 100 rooms featured an outside exposure and a private bath, which was the height of modern luxury back then. As the story goes, the name of the hotel itself came from a moment of inspiration. While the building was still a skeleton of steel and brick, Siedhoff's wife, Lydia, climbed to the top, surveying the unobstructed panoramic views of the Arkansas River and the expanding Wichita skyline. She remarked on the broad view before her. In just 8 months, the dream became a reality. On May 15, 1922, the Broadview officially opened its doors with 100 rooms, forever changing the face of downtown Wichita. By 1929, the Broadview was a victim of its own success. Despite the 1920s coming to a close, the demand for Siedhoff's luxury rooms was so high that 100 rooms simply wasn't enough. People weren't just visiting Wichita, they were flocking here. To keep up, Siedhoff kicked off a massive expansion project, adding another 100 rooms. This took the Broadview from a boutique luxury hotel to a 200-plus room powerhouse. But they didn't just build out, they built up. The expansion is what gave the hotel its iconic silhouette. It's officially become one of the tallest, most imposing structures on the riverfront. It featured a rooftop garden that became a social spot for Wichita's elite, the place to see and be seen while looking out over the broad view of the valley. But there's a bittersweet irony to this growth. The 1929 addition, specifically the new upper floors, is where many of the hotel's most famous stories began. It added the grandeur that defined the era, but it also provided the setting for the tragedies that would eventually lead to the Broadview's reputation as one of the most haunted places in Kansas. While the lobby of the Broadview was all about class and crystal, the basement was all about business, the illegal kind. To understand how the Broadview became the center of Wichita's Prohibition-era nightlife, you have to look at its connection to the Arkansas Valley Interurban Railway, or the AVI. Because the hotel was built right next to the AVI depot, it became a massive hub for transportation. But it wasn't just passengers coming off those electrical trains. The AVI tracks provided the perfect cover for smuggling cargo from the rural outskirts of Kansas directly into the heart of the city. But once the booze arrived at the depot, how did they get it into the hotel without the police noticing? That's where the legends of the tunnels come in. For decades, rumors have swirled about the maze of tunnels beneath the Broadview. Local historians and former staff tell stories of passages that led from the hotel basement under Waco Street and over toward the Delano District, Wichita's original red light district across the river. These tunnels allowed bootleggers to move crates of whiskey and gin directly into the hotel's secret speakeasy. While many of these passages have been filled in or walled off by decades of city utility work, the stories remain. It's said that if you were the right person with the right password, the Broadview basement was the wettest place in the dry state. There's even a famous story about the hotel barber. During the height of Prohibition, if a guest wanted a drink, they'd head down for a shave. The barber was allegedly the middleman, pulling bottles from hidden compartments beneath the floorboards. Whether it was Al Capone stopping through on his way to Chicago or local oil tycoons looking to unwind, the Broadview used its railway connection and its underground secrets to become the most untouchable speakeasy in Kansas. As the mid-century arrived, the Broadview was ready for a makeover. The gritty days of Prohibition were gone, and Wichita was now the air capital of the world. In 1948, the hotel underwent a massive expansion, adding what would become its crown jewel, the Crystal Ballroom. But this wasn't just a room for weddings and galas. It was destined to house a piece of Kansas history that is truly one of a kind. In the late 50s, the hotel commissioned an artist who is now a household name in Wichita, Blackbear Bosin. Most people know him as the creator of the iconic Keeper of the Plains. But before the Keeper stood over the river, Bosin spent months right here creating a masterpiece. This is the Advance of Civilization in Kansas mosaic. It is a staggering 1,500 square feet of hand-placed glass tiles stretching the entire length of the ballroom wall. What makes this mural so engaging isn't just the scale. It's the story. Bosin didn't just paint a pretty picture. He told the history of the land we're standing on. He depicted the transition from the indigenous people who first called these prairies home to the arrival of the pioneers and the building of the city. At the time of its completion, it was one of the largest continuous mosaics in the United States. It's a vibrant, colorful bridge between the Wichita of the past and the Wichita we know today. Standing in this room under these crystal chandeliers, you realize that the Broadview isn't just a place where people stayed, it's a gallery. It's a testament to how much this city values its roots. But as beautiful as this ballroom is, it also marks the beginning of the hotel's most mysterious era. Because the more history a building has, the more likely it is that some of it never leaves. By the early 2000s, the Broadview was tired. The gold leaf was fading, and the grandeur of 1922 felt like a distant memory. It was at a crossroads, facing a slow decline or a complete rebirth. That rebirth came in 2011 when Drury Hotels took over. They didn't just give it a coat of paint, they poured millions into a massive top to bottom historic renovation. Their mission was to preserve the soul of the building while bringing it into the 21st century. They meticulously restored the original woodwork and brought the Blackbear Bosin mosaic back to life. This renovation is why we can still walk through these doors today. It's a rare success story where modern luxury meets local history. But as any paranormal investigator will tell you, you can paint the walls and replace the carpets, but you can't renovate a ghost. In fact, many people believe all that construction and noise in 2011 is exactly what woke the spirits back up. They say that when you build a place with enough passion, some of the people who check in simply forgot to check out. As the years passed, the Broadview began to collect more than just history. It started collecting spirits. And if you ask the staff or the frequent travelers, they'll tell you the 8th floor is where the Broadview gets a little bit blurry. The most famous resident is Clarence. Now, Clarence's story is a dark one, a 1929 tragedy involving a cheating heart and a leap from the 8th floor balcony. But in the decades since, Clarence seems to have traded his sorrow for a sense of humor. He is what you might call a mischievous spirit. Imagine checking into your room after a long flight, only to have the phone ring at 3 a.m. You pick it up and silence. You hang it up. It rings again. You call the front desk and they tell you, "Sir, nobody is calling you, and actually the room next door is empty." And then, after a half a second of silence, the clerk says, "That's just Clarence saying hello." Then there are the gravity-defying curtains. Multiple guests, including flight crews who stay here regularly, have reported waking up to find their heavy blackout curtains not just moving, but pulled tight against the ceiling, as if someone had flipped the gravity switch in that room only. It's hard to explain away a draft when your curtains are trying to escape through the roof. Staff have reported the flapping wings, a sound like a massive bird trapped in a hallway with no windows. Others have seen a man in 1920s attire walking the mezzanine, only to vanish when they try to ask if he needs help with his bags. It's eerie, sure, but there's a strange comfort in it. These ghosts aren't here to scare you off. They're just part of the furniture. They are the residual energy of 100 years of parties, heartbreaks, and secret deals. So if you stay at the Broadview and your TV turns on by itself to a static channel, or you hear a faint whistle in the hallway when you're all alone, don't panic. It's just Wichita history reaching out to remind you that it's still here. The dreary Broadview, a place where the service is excellent, the history is deep, and the checkout time, well, for some, that's still to be determined.